Okay, Andy, let's talk about inner speech. I think I have observed it in my kids and my grandkids, but I would like to hear you talk about the way Vygotsky talks about it. And I'm looking at page 149 of my old copy of Thought and Word, where it says, this is some of that lovely evocative translation. Um, But while in external speech thought is embodied in words, in inner speech words die as they bring forth thought. What's that about?
Oh, thank you for that question, Helena. I've been thinking a lot about uh, inner voice last couple of weeks because I've been attending training in conflict resolution and meeting facilitation, and a lot of that is about internal voices. And I've been asking my friends about their internal voices and so on as well. So it's really timely. Now, I found the passage that you quote on page 280 of my edition of the volume one of the collected works. Um, the words are much the same there, but I'll put it on the screen so that people can have a browse of it. The first thing to say about this is Vygotsky is talking in the developmental frame, right? Not exactly talking about like words going in and dying. He's talking about speech in its various forms, from external to internal and so on, um, dying as a developmental phase. Right? So what he means is that he's talking about the development of the intellect, that is to say, the capacity to operate and think in terms of concepts. Now, concepts are pure meaning. When we're thinking, trying to work out what we're going to do for the day, working through a problem, assessing someone that's maybe talking to us or whatever it is, we're generally speaking thinking in concepts, in pure meanings. We're not having an internal conversation with ourselves in fully developed sentences, that's for sure. Right? Pure meaning. So by meaning, remember, meaning is an active relation of yourself to outside problems or objects. Right? So what do I mean by that? What's your intention? What are you getting at? What action is implied in your stance? Right? Concepts of pure meaning. A single concept may be many different meanings for many different contexts. Right? So thinking is not speech, not a monologue. Right? The brilliance of Vygotsky is how he understands this mysterious dark realm by approaching it in a developmental sense. So he traces the emergence of what he calls verbal thought, because he's taking it for granted, like the ancients before him, that the intellect is something to do with speech. So he traces the development of thinking and speech from the earliest phases of their appearance, separate appearance in a child, through the child using external speech to control their own activity, to that external speech becoming quiet, silent, internal, until it disappears entirely into pure meaning, and you have human beings that operate without talking to themselves. Now, the brilliant thing that you've drawn my attention to is how he says that there are two stable realms. On one side, you've got pure thought, pure concepts, meaning. On the other side, you've got spoken words, one after the other. Both of them are stable, well-established levels or planes of activity. But in between, both in the developmental sense of this brief passage in the child's development, but also in our own day-to-day activity, there is this unstable, so dynamic, unstable, fluid phenomenon that appears momentarily between the more clearly formed and stable poles of verbal thinking, word and thought, speech and thinking. And that's in fact what you find with people, that when we're, for instance, when we're just normally and effectively thinking, there's no monologue going on there unless you happen to be speaking at the time. But when you come across a problem, your consciousness pops into conscious awareness, and like a critical voice that you may have heard sometimes, someone saying, like Michael Cole giving me an advice about some matter, or my partner who picks me up on this or that, or a discovery I made to myself some time ago, and I hear myself mentioning this. So different voices advise us or criticize us or voice things, problems, right? So, but this is this very fluid, unstable thing. It's not thought itself, it's not speech, but it lies on the surface in between them, this unstable, fluid plane. And this plane appears in the process of development, but it dies away. It begins as a definite phase of development as external speech becomes silent speech, and it disappears developmentally into intelligence, the intellect. But remnants of it continue around right into our adult life. That's the wonderful thing about it. Okay, thank you for that, Helena.